All right, great to have Sam Borden's perspective and reporting here on Futbol Americas. I should probably preface this conversation with acknowledging, at least I don't speak for you, but I'm not a geopolitical expert. So your thoughts on everything that we've seen kind of unravel in the last 24 hours?
It's difficult because one would say this is sports. Politics shouldn't be involved. The politics has been involved with the sport since its inception.
And definitely at this World Cup.
And definitely at this World Cup. And a lot of these kids won't even know what the geopolitical battle with Iran is about and how that is linked to them. And they are finding out now. The way that Tyler Adams carried himself. I mean, he's the youngest captain in this World Cup. And to carry yourself with such poise, such maturation, just such understanding of the moment, and to eloquently speak that way beyond his years. So I commend them for that. But this is going to be something different than just a game. And I think Greg Berhalter and his comments to Sam Borden is spot on. You have to match the intensity and the emotion of which this game will be played at for Iran. You have to understand that it's much more than a game for them. This means much more than just 90 minutes of ball rolling on the field. So with that said, there's still a game to be played.
Yep.
So you have to somehow eliminate everything else from your mind when it comes down to those 90 minutes in order to get a result.
You know, I wonder what those behind the tweet were hoping to accomplish. You know, the intent may be valiant, right? If we kind of dig into this, we may understand that, you know, it was explained before the tweet was deleted that this was in support of the women in Iran, effectively. Right. And we've seen actually the players in the Iranian team take a stand for the women of Iran.
Didn't sing the national anthem.
There may be some people in that Iranian dressing room that see this and say, oh, they're in line with us. But from the point of the social media account of the U.S. men's national team, it's not even the federation, it's the men's national team. What are you hoping to accomplish with one tweet that effectively gets, erased 5 hours later? I just don't see, even if you have the best intentions, how you can look at it as a responsible move. It's irresponsible to not do this with the proper coordination. And then as we hear, from the players and the staff, they had not even nothing to do with it, but no knowledge that it was coming. So I wonder if I can't imagine you've ever been in a situation like this, but I've been in a dressing room where someone outside that dressing room has created an issue for you now in the dressing room, and what that makes you feel like as a player.
I'm trying to think about that, and no, I don't think I've ever been in a situation like that. But as a player, what you're trying to do is focus on what you need to do, right? And it'd be one thing if they came to the players, we want to take a stand together. And then the players decided on it. They voted on it. Yeah. Greg Berhalter had some input on this. The federation had some input on this. But it's a community manager here going rogue, if you will, and doing this because for whatever reason, but without consulting the federation, without consulting the players, without consulting exactly who will be affected. Regardless of how well-intended it is, or whatever the case may be, whatever you're looking for, it needs to be consulted. You may be trying to cash checks that these players aren't ready for.
Yeah.
And that to me worries. Right now, they're not the ones taking that stand. They're not the ones trying to give. And this isn't bulletin board material, but it's extra attention that takes away for them what should be the focal point of one of the biggest games of their lives.
I mean, you saw that press conference. It was incredibly tense. That can't have been comfortable.
No.
It's a totally different level, but it actually reminds me a little bit, if you go back, 5 years ago now, the defining game of the failed qualifying campaign for the U.S. last time around is in Trinidad. And you remember the U.S. social media team got in trouble then for posting the images of the guys kind of laughing and joking about the field conditions the day before that game. And clearly the people in Trinidad took great offense to that. And this just seems like a 10x, 100x, 1,000x version of that, right? In a World Cup, you've created a situation, a tension that didn't need to be there. And this isn't, as you've said, just any other game. There was already going to be incredible geopolitical, historical, cultural tension here.
Yeah.
And this only makes it worse.
Yeah, I mean, the questions you're getting that are coming out of this event, this tweet, this deleted tweet now, you're getting questions about naval ships off of Iran. You're getting questions about discrimination in the states, gun control, all these different questions. And these players like, where did this come from?
Right.
I came to play a football game, regardless of their stance, and these players empathetic towards the cause, and we all are. We all want human rights. It should be a birthright.
Yes.
That should be it's non-negotiable.
Right.
But right now, they're talking about a football match,
Yes.
and they're being asked geopolitical questions about naval ships.
Yes.
It's everything but the actual game. And you mentioned the tweet. There's a long list of things that the players on the men's side and women's side have been almost put in the forefront for, and they had no idea. You can go back to when the women had the lawsuit against the federation, and the lawyers for the federation put out that, well, men are stronger physically, so they should make more. How is that a defense? And the men had no idea this was going on, and then the U.S. soccer president said, we had no idea this was actually their defense. These things just make you look dumb.
Yeah. Let's credit the people who were at the press conference today. I think both Greg Berhalter and especially Tyler Adams handled that about as best as you could.
Yes.
Something else very interesting came out of the press conference today, and it had to do with what's happening on the field, or maybe better said, what might happen tomorrow on the field. Of course, you know Jeff Carlisle. You've seen him here on this show. You can follow his writing over at ESPN.com. I asked Greg Berhalter about the performance of the Central Strikers and if any thought had been given to Gio playing there, of course, Gio Reyna. He said he hadn't thought about moving Reyna, Pulisic, Weah, Morris, or anyone else there instead of Sargent, Wright, or Ferreira. Okay, Herc, is Greg Berhalter correct then to discard the false 9 option ahead of this game against Iran? Because that seems like what he's doing there.
Yeah, and Ferreira is the false 9 option. That is the false 9 option. It's Jesus Ferreira.
He's more he may well be a false 9, but
he's the false 9 option.
But he's more of a true 9 than a Pulisic, Weah,
Is he?
Reyna. And you know what the point is here, right? Get all your best attackers on the field. That's the idea behind not using a Sargent, a Haji, or a Jesus
You're
Ferreira.
trying to say he's not showing his hand. That's what you're trying to go for.
No, I'm just wondering, do you think it's the correct move for him not to play a false 9 in this game?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because what Iran has shown me is they're a team that's very physical. They're very intense. You can have a combination of those 2 9s. You can have a 9 with movement, pace, and you could also have a 9 that's going to do well in a physical battle because I think this will be a very physical game. Greg Berhalter's already talking about matching the emotion, matching the intensity.
You're
When
right.
I saw Iran play versus Wales, Wales, a Welsh team that beat up physically the United States men's national team in the second half of the first game in the World Cup, when I saw that, when I saw how they kicked them in the mouth, when I saw how they played with that intensity, with that heart, with that grit, I knew the United States men's national team was in store for a battle. So I would go with something a little bit more refined on the physical front, one, and also capable of having speed and intelligence to break that line because they will push up, they will give you opportunities.
Real quick, are you saying it's a bad idea overall or just for this Iran game? Like, would you think a false 9, a Pulisic there could work for this team and maybe a different matchup? Or are you just saying
well, hold on. A false 9 could actually work in this matchup at some point in the game.
Okay.
Because there may be a scenario in this game where it presents itself because of that line, where it presents itself because of the spaces that are being afforded to you, and you notice those spaces being afforded to you. You could very well go into a Timothy Weah in the 9 position or a Christian Pulisic in the 9 position because you think that they can get on beyond that defensive line and it could be acres of space for them to take advantage of. That could be an option, yes, but I don't think you go into it starting thinking, I need a false 9.
Yeah. I think it's worth stating the obvious here. Any manager in the day before a press conference asked a direct question like that, he's
not going to tip his hand.
No, he's not going to tip his hand. So take what he said there with a grain of salt. Okay, we don't know what Greg Berhalter's ideal 11 for the game tomorrow is, but we might have an inkling as to Herculez Gomez best 11 for the showdown with Iran. There it is, Herc. Walk us through it.
All right, bear with me. It's Matt
do.
Turner, Anthony Robinson on the left, Tim Ream, Walker Zimmerman. You're not moving those 2 center backs. Serginho Dest. I will go with Serginho again. I thought he looked very good against England. I'm going to go Musa, Adams. Now listen to me carefully.
I am listening because I'm curious about
worried
this.
about Weston McKennie's health.
Okay.
How much he can give you. And I think this is going to be one of those games where you need a little bit of poop-housery, where you may need somebody who's a master of those dark arts, where you may need somebody who's a physical presence, good on the ball. We need somebody who's a two-way player. So I went with Kellen Acosta, and then up front, I'm not moving anything on the wings.
Okay.
I've enjoyed Christian Pulisic. I've enjoyed Timothy Weah. I think Timothy Weah is coming into his own this World Cup. I think it's a breakout tournament for him. Josh Sargent is that hybrid I mentioned to you.
Okay.
He's the one that can give you that physical presence but also stretch the line and is intelligent enough with his movement. I think he's the most talented 9 in the pool. I go with him again. I know Haji got the start against England. I go back to the well with Josh Sargent, and I think he could do something for me. But the big question mark for me is Weston McKennie.
Okay, let me put it to you this way. If Greg Berhalter, knowing what he knows, which is more than us, says, nah, Weston's 100%, he's good to go, he's in your starting 11, correct? Or are you still going with Acosta?
I like Acosta in this type
because
of matchup.
Let me throw this at you.
But
Weston seems to have actually looked better physically in the second game than the first, so
but
he's growing, I would
Weston's
suggest.
a player that I know what I can get out of. And if he looked physically better and you think he can physically go, he's back in there. I know he missed that chance versus England, but he is that guy. Box to box, contagious with his work rate, gets everybody around him going, technical, soft feet, and he gets on the end of things. He's got a knack for arriving late into the box, which is very valuable. So I would go with Weston. There is a huge question mark there for me, so it's Acosta or Weston, but I do not mind Acosta one bit in this game.
There's a couple guys you've left on the bench. Gio Reyna, maybe you can explain that easily. But I saw your face when you had to make the way up Brendan Aronson decision. How tough was it for you to leave Mr. Futbol Americas out of this
not
lineup?
tough in this one because I think there's going to be a high line that he can exploit.
Okay.
So
Okay.
not tough in this one. But just in general, leaving Brendan Aronson off any list gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, I don't like to do it. It's bad juju. No.
Gio Reyna, a sub in this one?
And an early sub.
Okay.
You got to get him. I think there's a space for Gio Reyna early in this game where the game's going to be transitional, the game's going to be open, and you start thinking to yourself, man, Gio Reyna, he could take advantage of this. Put him in the midfield, put him on the wing, put him wherever you want. Get him on the ball, most importantly, and I think he could do something special. He's that player for me. But I don't know about starting him. If you've not really played him at all, starting him now, I mean, especially after everything Greg Berhalter has said and everything that we have heard, the rumors going around, I think you get him out early.
Last question based on the lineup you put out there. Who's taking your set pieces? Because now you got Kellen Acosta on, and we know
If Kellen
he's very
Acosta's
good.
on the field over Christian Pulisic, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
It's Kellen Acosta. He's taking the set
Really?
pieces. Yeah, he's more consistent.
Even
He's
though
been more
Pulisic's
consistent.
set pieces were much better second game
Well,
than
that's
the first?
because the bar was so low the first game.
Okay.
That's why they looked better in the second. But Kellen Acosta, when both players have been healthy, he would be the guy I go with. I think he's more consistent in his set piece delivery.
All right, so we've seen Herc's 11. Let's take a look then at the Group B standings and where everybody sits after 2 games in group play. We'll get to the standings a little bit later, but we'll actually take a look at the odds first. For tomorrow's showdown against Iran, United States favorites there, hang out at just plus 100. Iran plus 290 to get the win, and a draw coming in at plus 225.